Welcome, beloveds, to this week's craniosacral conversation. I'm Caspian. I identify as a craniosacral practitioner, which means I'm somebody who practices again and again how to live relationships the way body does, since a body is many relationships, yet they all express in balanced ways most of the time. So, how can we do that with our external relationships as well? Um, And yes, this cranial conversation I entitled Junk DNA because there's percentages of DNA and different research papers mention different percentages that's considered junk, as in it doesn't function, it doesn't have a functionary role. But I wanted to have this be a body example of how so much of our understanding of the world and then our understanding of self is based on definitions. So, who writes those definitions? What information is available at the time a definition is created? And can we hold multiple stories? And that's what I'm often saying that we should do for ourselves and about life. And so, junk DNA is another example of that, because there are many research papers that have different definitions and then a different percentage of how much DNA is considered junk DNA. And this is all something I think we can weave into stories we tell about ourselves, especially around functioning. Do we consider ourselves a functioning person? Do we consider that trait or body area a functioning trait or body area? And so I just want this to be an example of how definitions can change and definitions of what's considered functioning can change. So, if someone is not able to work a 9 to 5 job, if someone's not able to do this or that other people can do, are they still a functioning human? And I say yes, because life can look many different ways. Life expression can look many ways, and functionality can look many ways. So with DNA, DNA does many things like copying itself, but some of the things that are considered non-functionary and then considered functionary again, or if people are asking like, oh, if some proteins stick to the DNA, is that considered having a function, even if it's not going into gene expression? Like a lot of DNA is known to express certain appearances or traits or diseases. Um, and so it's maybe about expression, but they're saying like, is just being copied functioning, because some pseudogenes are when genes get copied. So if like a mutation that's positive happens to one, but what if a mutation that's negative happens to another? There's a copy. So do we even count copies? It's just being copied a function? And I think that's really beautiful. As a twin, I often love the idea of just going alongside someone through life. That's a function. Thinking of reclaiming mothering or maternal instincts, as they're called, is just going along life with someone considered functioning, a functioning life. And how, even in our definitions at the micro level as well as the macro level, thinking about what is functioning. And I think that a lot of scientists, they like clear cut answers. They cut things into little bits and segments. Like, here's the line where functioning stops and starts. But really, we see that I think what this conversation about junk DNA is getting at is seeing the helpers, seeing the little steps of like, at what point do you say that that's not adding to the main events that they might call? When thinking about putting on a concert for the main event, how many people needed to promote, how many people needed to be the audience, how many people needed to feed the people so they could arrive at the concert, or feed the musicians so they could perform. how many people need to build the place that the performance is happening at? How far back do we go when starting saying what helped make that main event, the concert, happen? And so I want to think about that when reading research papers, when researchers try to create these definitions, these narratives, and see when reading the paper how much they struggle with these, I don't know if it's like in betweens or like lines of like where do we start and stop including something in this category of something. And I think that can show a lot about the values of a culture and their worldview, about when they say something starts or stops. So junk DNA is just, I'm thinking of like dark matter. There is so much about life that are still misunderstood or unknown, but our unknown and misunderstood sides of ourselves don't have to be considered non functioning. So I want to remind people too, if you're feeling misunderstood, you can connect with dark matter and junk DNA. If you're feeling like you're considered as non-functioning, before believing those narratives yourself, before internalizing those narratives yourself, think about junk DNA, think about dark matter, think about all that is still unknown. And unknown doesn't have to be scary, doesn't have to be considered non-functioning. It's just unknown. And myofascia, even all the connective fibers that are now being understood as so important in body, used to just be cut away, so that the main event could be seen more clearly, when really seeing that what connects us so much is just as important, and that there can't be these clear defined separations between where a certain tissue starts and ends. Is the tissue also its nerves, its blood flow, its oxygen? Who brought that oxygen? So is that a part of that organ as well? And so these are the thoughts I've been having when thinking about junk DNA. Obviously, I'm not giving an in depth definition of all the definitions of junk DNA and the history of when they changed or didn't change, but just to give you a little bit of a time understanding, mainstream, maybe Western science released the image of what a DNA strand looks like only back in the 1960s or so. So there are a lot of people who didn't grow up knowing what DNA looked like. But I want to say that in the Western scientific method sense only, because a lot of people, their cultures often have sacred geometry or imagery or numerology that can be seen in weavings or patterns or art or practices that hint at knowing some of this, even if they didn't have the technology to have a visual confirmation by a piece of equipment or technology. So that's why I hold loosely saying that, we knew what DNA looked like in the 60s, but really some people might have known in other ways. And I want to hold that. But that's a little bit of a timeline when these conversations maybe got started. And now so much is underway about like gene sequencing and being able to point where this exact trait lives on genes in humans. But this one video I really like that reminded people that having lots of genes doesn't necessarily mean that much, because onions have more genes than, or DNA have more DNA than humans do. And so, but yet the body is really good at being efficient. So why are there parts that don't have active roles? And I just want to really hold that body is showing us something about, or that life showing us something about the value of something just being present, something having a use that maybe isn't activated until something else is set in motion, or just all the reasons about how there are still mystery. And just because something doesn't fit into a certain narrative doesn't mean that it doesn't have a function. And so I want you to be curious about that with other parts of yourself as well, not just with your DNA, but really think about your definitions of functionality and not get down on yourself, because at some point those definitions about what a functioning human is might change. And then there's all that regret and hurt and betrayal about when you didn't believe that for yourself, or you treated yourself or made certain decisions and just for the definition to change, right? So you can write your own definitions or just feel it yourself that you're a functioning human. And if you need some support in that, think about talk with some junk DNA. So that is this topic for this week, but I always like to close with some ways we can show up for all of life, for community, how we can practice those internal conversations being brought outward to the external. So I'm going to talk about if you live in Mni Sóta Makhóčhe, homelands of the Dakota people, and then later the Anishinaabe and Ho-Chunk people, that are still being stewarded by Indigenous people, by the Dakota, Ho-Chunk, and Anishinaabe people today. Um, if you live in Minnesota, then there are some ways to show up for people in Palestine. Jill Biden is coming to Minnesota, Minneapolis, this evening, Friday evening, 6 p.m. So if you want to show up and protest and say, stand with students who are speaking up for Palestinians, don't go to war with Iran. Ceasefire now, let humanitarian aid into Palestine, let Palestinian people live. If you want to say any of that at this education conference, it's at the Doubletree Hotel in Minneapolis on Norman Dale Road. Anti-war community has the details, but 6 p.m. tonight, and location might change, so stay up to date on social media if for security reasons they can't get that close, but have our voices be heard. There's also on Saturday, tomorrow, 1 p.m. at Bryant Square Park in South Minneapolis, a rally to be in solidarity with all people for Palestine, but also specifically for all being solidarity with all the students. If you've been following what's been happening at Columbia University, and then there was an eviction at Lake and Fifth yesterday. So please follow AYU_yurts, YURTS, or Twin Cities encampments, or Camp Nino Kasi, or a supply depot, or community kitchen, for ways to show up for people. There's so many ways to show up. There's a great post by Camp Nino Kasi earlier, like if you can show up the day before and drop off suitcases with wheels on it, or some cigarettes, or some support. If you can help day of, show up sometimes at 5 a.m. just to be on site, because police tend to block things off so that people can't help. You can be there day of to help people move, feel that support, or you can be supportive in the following days, bringing meals. Like I said, bring whatever is on the list, but follow that, offer that support, because continued care is support. Even if you're not able to show up on eviction days, it's still supportive. So let's keep us safe together. Let's see each other. And I just want to say thank you for all of this. Let me think if I'm missing anything else. I know Makhóčhe Ikachupi, you can reach out to them and donate because they're trying to buy some ricing land. So that's a big campaign. The North Star Act, please talk to your representatives about that, or go to the North Star website to show up for people who have immigrated here. And this could be your neighbors who have been here for years, who still need some rights and protection, or it could be new people coming here. So if you want to show up for them, the North Star Act's really important. And happy late Eid for everyone with the end of Ramadan. And let me think if there's anything else. I think I'll leave it there. I know Susan Raffo has a book coming out that if you can go to her social media, that can really help finance her walk happening right now. So that's a way to show support. I know that Dreamweavers or Weaving Stories is a new book that's coming out as well, that can be a way that you can show some support. It's called Wisdom Weavers by James Vukeelick, and you can still reach out to your library and ask them to have copies of the Seven Generation Teachings at the book there. Make a request for libraries to have that book. What else is going on? I think that might be what I know for now. But remember, we can always be boycotting. Sending emails to, it's hard to boycott Google, but send emails to Google and boycott Amazon for the ways that they're complicit in the genocide that's happening to Palestinian people right now. Spread information about what's happening in Sudan right now. There's still the blockade for Cuba. People in Hawaii still need support. But boycotting is really, really important because the US and Israel are huge contributors to a lot of the violence that's happening in the world. So if they can have less funding, that supports multiple causes at once. And so if you're not aware, Google, why sending messages to Google is they're using AI and technology in Israel to harm Palestinian people and contribute to this genocide. So boycott if you can Google. There's Ecosia, other search engines to use, but it's hard sometimes the way the internet's set up. So like write messages that you're in solidarity with the workers who are protesting. And like I said, protest Amazon, Starbucks, go to BDS movement, boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement to find the whole list of brands, companies. During Ramadan, it was also about like find appropriate dates to eat or not eat or purchase. It's not connected to genocide. So just a whole list of like there's some of our makeup that certain makeup companies, certain just like HP technology, like just lots of companies. The more ways we can show a solidarity with boycotting, we can have our voices heard. I recognize with McDonald's being one of them for some people that might be difficult with finances, but honestly, it feels like McDonald's isn't that affordable nowadays, anyways. So if you can boycott Starbucks, McDonald's, Disney, those are the big three. But now Google and Amazon are also, I feel like, really big and can be targeted, and we can show collective solidarity. But go to the website, find all that. And another shout out is to just the Cultural Wellness Center for making these craniosacral conversations possible. If you want other free videos of other practitioners like sound and breath healing with Loredana, yoga with Mickey, some dance and Zumba happening. Check out the Cultural Wellness Center's in-person events, virtual events. Let's keep masking. Let's keep each other safe. I've been hearing about people getting COVID. Let's keep masking, everyone. And thank you so much for tuning into this craniosacral conversation and staying till the end for some community updates. I hope that this week is nourishing for you. I hope that you're seen in all the ways you want to be seen by those you want to be seen by. I hope that it feels like your favorite song is dancing alongside you. And may everybody everywhere have access to the resources and encouragement to be, share, and feel the gifts that you are, that they are, that we are together. Thank you so much.